How's it going everyone, and welcome back to a brand new Star Wars Battlefront 2 video. And in this video we're going to be doing something that I have been putting off for a very long time, but you guys have finally convinced me to get this done. So we're going to be discussing the best heroes for heroes versus villains in Battlefront 2. Obviously, some heroes in this game are significantly better in heroes versus villains as opposed to Supremacy or Galactic Assault. Now we're going to discuss 3 heroes and 3 villains, just so we can keep this precise and to the point. Now obviously, some people can be great in heroes versus villains with pretty much any hero, but there are heroes that undeniably should be ones that you choose over others. And given that there is a lot of new players, I thought this video would be fitting at a time like this. Now if you guys do want to see a video on the worst heroes for heroes versus villains in Battlefront 2, then make sure you smash a like on this video and let me know down in the comments. And while you're there, if you haven't subscribed already, then absolutely feel free to do so, as we are trying to hit 100,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But now anyway, let's dive on into this video, and starting off with the villains. The first villain that is easily one of the best for heroes versus villains is Darth Vader. Vader has probably the best ability combination in the game behind only Anakin. And his choke in heroes versus villains is basically a death sentence for the enemy team. Sure, it's great for you playing as Vader to get kills, but when you've got a few heroes caught in a force choke and 3 other villains waiting for them to drop to the ground, it's an ability that can almost single-handedly cause the enemy team to be wiped out all at once. Now Vader also has star cards that really do increase just how effective he can be in heroes versus villains. Now don't get me wrong, Vader can more than do the job with even the wrong star cards on, but I have found that Vader's Surrounded by Fear star card, which gains you stamina back when you get a kill, really does complement the lightsaber spam fest that heroes versus villains tends to be more often than not. So if you are in those spam fest lobbies, then I do recommend using this star card, because when you combine some Vader spam with his focused rage, he just becomes a wrecking machine. Now, I don't encourage lightsaber spam, but I mean, it's effective, and sometimes you just have to be in that mindset of, if you can't beat him, join him. But regardless of all of that, you definitely have your money on a villain lineup that has Vader as opposed to one that doesn't. And I think that Vader should just be your first choice for the villains in heroes versus villains every time. But the second villain that I would recommend for heroes versus villains is actually Kylo Ren. Now some might disagree and some might stand by this. Now the reason I'd say Kylo should be your second choice villain is, well, actually a ton of reasons. The first being, Kylo has one of the most deadly abilities in the entire game, and it kind of flies under the radar considering what it can actually do. That is of course his freeze ability. Stopping players dead in their tracks for a few seconds can be a complete death sentence, especially considering the players you freeze will be surrounded by other villains. And when it's a mosh pit of villain damage going on, any hero can get melted in less than a second. And it also gives you the chance to walk behind the hero you just froze and land a critical hit, which is going to give you an instant advantage. Now Kylo's frenzy also complements heroes versus villains very well because of how he can leap from one hero to another. In a mode where the enemy heroes tend to be bunched together, this makes Kylo a monster. Now combining all of this with star cards that are just literally built for heroes versus villains, like Kylo's Resilience star card, which allows Kylo to deal more damage and receive less damage when in the proximity of other villains. It honestly just feels like Kylo was made for this game mode. Now if you want to just join the spam fest that, heroes versus villains tends to be, then you can put on his Berserking Tantrum star card, which decreases Kylo's stamina drain by up to 20%. But I don't really ship this. I'd still rather you didn't join the spam, but you gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. Now the final villain that I recommend for heroes versus villains is actually IDEN Versio. Now a really good IDEN player in heroes versus villains can be one of the most annoying things in this game. Like, I actually didn't originally want to include IDEN in this video, but the other night across a few different heroes versus villains lobbies, I came across about 3 really good IDEN players that nearly made me snap my keyboard in half. If you can master IDEN Versio, you can become a nightmare in heroes versus villains. Granted, she does take more practice to be really good with as opposed to Vader or Kylo, but I felt like I would really be undercutting her worth if I didn't include her in this video. Her droid stun can pretty well screw up any hero that gets caught in it, whether other villains destroy the hero you stunned or you melt them with your TL50, which is just a ridiculously good blaster. Like, you can do serious damage to enemy heroes really quickly. Now, another thing that really elevates IDEN is she can actually be pretty good up close against lightsaber heroes. Because her secondary fire is so powerful and can be shot at your feet with stupid amounts of splash damage, you can actually wreck heroes if you time your dodges well. I do recommend that you use her alternative methods star card, which allows you to use her secondary fire more. Also, her shock reach star card, which makes those stuns more powerful with more range, and her cooled blaster star card, which lets you use her TL50 for longer without it overheating. So honestly, don't sleep on IDEN. Take the time to master her, and she can be one hell of a main for heroes versus villains. But if you want the easier route, go with Vader or Kylo Ren. And now moving on to the heroes, we have Anakin Skywalker. Now obviously Anakin was going to appear in this video, it's Anakin. His ability loop is the best in the entire game, and you can basically kill any blaster hero you wish with that ability loop. It's actually kind of messed up. Now, Anakin is always going to be probably the safest option for the hero lineup when it comes to heroes versus villains. His heroic might is something you can use in those situations where you have 4 villains just spamming you to death, so Anakin sort of has like a get out of jail free card. And of course, when you receive enough damage, you can use Anakin's Retribution, which can literally result in the death of all 4 villains you're going up against. Now, as for what star cards to use for Anakin in Heroes vs Villains, Anakin's Steamroll star card is great for this game mode. Anything that helps out stamina is always going to be great for this mode, but you really can get very experimental with Anakin's star cards because he is so good overall. Much like Vader, there isn't really any wrong way to approach Anakin in Heroes vs Villains. He's always going to do the job for you. And now moving on to the second hero is Luke Skywalker. Now Luke is amazing in this game in all game modes. But if you don't go with him when you can in Heroes vs Villains, you are definitely doing yourself a disservice. Luke has a very good ability loop for Heroes vs Villains, so he just suits the chaos of the game mode very well. The rushes keep him constantly moving, his repulse can clear out clustered areas, his force push is great for making villains vulnerable, and his lightsaber damage and swing speed is just about the best in the entire game. Now, combining all of that with his star cards that complement Heroes vs Villains very well, you have a total beast for this game mode. Now, speaking of those star cards, Luke's Intensify star card, which increases his lightsaber damage, is one of the better star cards in the game, and when you've got it maxed out, it can make Luke just insane to use. Also, his Jedi Fighter star card, again, another stamina star card. I know I've been stressing stamina a lot in this video, but stamina is very important in Heroes vs Villains. A lot of the time you end up screwed is when your stamina is completely gone. So between Anakin and Luke, you've got 2 very safe options. And for Heroes vs Villains, you really cannot go wrong with these 2. Now, the last hero of this video was actually very difficult to do, and I wanted to go with a blaster hero, and it was a toss-up between Chewie and Han. But I've decided to go with Han for this video, as a good Han player, much like IDEN, can be that annoying that you just want to start breaking things. Now, I'm not that great with Han on PC, so the gameplay in the background is probably not the best, but I am very good with him on Xbox, and I know how good he can be. Han is just rounded well enough to go toe-to-toe with lightsaber heroes. His shoulder charge can put a lightsaber hero on the floor, his sharpshooter ability can melt stunned heroes so quickly, and his Detonite charge is so powerful in this mode and can be used defensively and offensively, and his deal 44 damage by itself is just ridiculous. So if you're going to go with a blaster hero in Heroes vs Villains, I would recommend Han over others. Sure, Lando or Chewie could be decent if you are good enough with them, but Han is a very safe bet. Now, as for star cards, I would recommend Han's Smuggler's Wits star card for that extra dodge, and his Airburst star card, as most of the time you use his Detonite charge, it will have to be detonated quickly. So don't sleep on Han, take the time to get good with him, and it will pay off for you just like IDEN. So guys, those are in my opinion the best heroes and villains for Heroes vs Villains. Obviously, this is just my opinion, and a lot of people will say that other heroes are better, which is totally fine, so go ahead and let me know down in the comments what heroes you think are the best for heroes versus villains. And remember, if you do want to see a video on the worst heroes, then be sure to let me know down in the comments and drop a like on this video. But that is just about going to do it for today's video, guys, so thank you all for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will talk to you all again in the next one.